special guest. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you all doing?
Peace. How you doing?
Peace. We're
I'm
doing good. We're doing good.
I'm doing
So
well.
let's start. Let's
I was enjoying the segments, so don't mind the smile.
Okay.
so let's jump right in. Let me introduce you to the folks, or introduce the folks to you. We have Sister Claudia De La Cruz, who is the co-executive director of the People's Forum, a Marxist popular educator and activist, and has connections to many international movements, and as well as being a member of the Dominican community. And we asked you to come on because we wanted to do a little follow-up to obviously what's happening in Haiti. And I think Brother Hiram, who heard the story or was listening to the story, thought it would be interesting, and we thought it'd be great too, to talk about the connections of Haiti with Dominican Republic, and even explore the larger story just a little bit more. So right before we start, just some quick updates, and I think the first question is going to be just to ask you what you think about the general situation that's happening, and then we get into some deeper stuff. But some more details have come out about the actual assassination. According to news reports, the president Moïse was shot like approximately 12 times. The Haitian authorities are reporting, and that has to be taken with some speculation, that they've captured and or killed at least 4 assailants and captured 1 or 2 others. We also know that they've declared what they call a state of siege in Haiti, which is saying that they have the right, of course, to almost martial law. They have the right to go into homes and look for quote unquote suspects. Prime Minister Joseph has now declared himself president. And as we know, he was the 6th prime minister in 4 years and was actually about to be replaced. And then lastly on this is that the Security Council has now called a special meeting to discuss Haiti, which of course is leading to the further speculation that the Security Council is about to try to roll back in, which even was on the table apparently before this assassination in terms of what people were discussing in Haiti. And so I just wanted to give that quick update. Claudia, can you give us a little overview about what you, in terms of your, looking at this matter, what do you think is happening in Haiti right now? And obviously we know a lot of things are still speculation, information is gathering, but can you give us just an assessment of what you feel is happening right now?
I think it's important to understand the necessity of this assassination for the elite in Haiti and for U.S. imperialist powers. It was becoming a little too volatile of a situation, specifically with the uprisings that have been happening, the latest ones that started in February 2019 and went all through 2019 and through the pandemic of 2020. There was a clear desire to get Jovenel out of the presidency and shift the direction of the country. Jovenel's party has been very, very open to the neoliberal agenda, not only in Haiti, but in the region. I think Dr. Prosper did a great job yesterday speaking more in relationship to that. But I think it's important for us to understand the importance of Haiti's strategic location in relationship to the colonial and imperialist powers and interests. And we have to remember that the process of colonization in the American continent started in the Caribbean in 1492. And what we know now as the Dominican Republic and Haiti is geostrategic to launching the process of colonization in the entire continent. So the Caribbean holds an incredible amount of US military presence. And that presence serves to surveil, to maintain control over the region. We need to remember that, these US bases in the Caribbean are explicitly, again, acquired through the conquests that happened in the Spanish-American-Cuban War. There's Guantanamo Bay that's there, the permanent infrastructure at the US naval base in Guantanamo is continuing the antagonism with Cuba. You have Puerto Rico as a colony of the United States that serves the regional headquarters for the Army, the Navy, the Special Forces. So the Caribbean is part a complex a complex web of U.S. military facilities in the region that represents the interests of the U.S. elite. So they're strategically located to ensure access to resources, specifically oil. And when we're talking about Haiti, the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, these are very strategic points that the United States and the European powers do not want to release. And if we're able to understand the situation in Haiti in relationship to that, we'll understand the insistence of the United States wanting to intervene politically in Haiti, wanting to maintain Haiti in a state of misery, and also working with the national oligarchies of Haiti and the Dominican Republic to be able to foment this antagonism that doesn't really exist at the grounds. This is something that the elite has created for the divide and conquering purposes. And so, there, of course, a president is shot. Now everybody's like, oh, who did it? But in whose interest was it that the president of Haiti was assassinated? And there's a huge split in the oligarchy of Haiti, right? They were trying to figure out how to get him out because he was obviously not becoming the poster face. And we have a history in the Dominican Republic and throughout the American continent of dictators that went rogue. Like there's Noriega, there's Trujillo from the Dominican Republic, where the CIA put their hands in it and marked them. And then they said, oh, we don't know who killed them. Now we got to intervene. And that has historically happened. And so when we look at what's happening in Haiti, it's part of a pattern that has historically happened in the American continent. And I would say throughout the world, because we know capitalism and imperialism is global at this point. It's not, it doesn't stay within nation states.
Could you talk a little bit about, to the extent you haven't already, the relationship between the current government in Dominican Republic and Haiti, and the relationship? I was asking yesterday of Dr. Prosper about the fact that we saw, or it was reported at least that we saw, that it was Dominican news coverage that was among the first to be reporting the assassination. And I was just curious, in terms of the media relationships between the two countries and now also the governing relationships. To what extent is the current leadership in Dominican Republic tied with, the West, and what was their relationship with Moïse, and what would you expect to be the relationship going forward?
I mean, we share a lot of history, Haiti and the Dominican Republic. Obviously, it's one island that has been divided by geopolitics and imperialist and colonial interests, right? So it's one island. So there's a lot of history of resistance, but also a lot of history of exploitation. And when it comes to the development of nation states, of what we now know as the Dominican Republic or Haiti, the rule has always been that of capitalists, has been that of oligarchs, has been in the interest of the United States. It has been very briefly that either the Dominican Republic or Haiti in the development as nation states has had a space of like popular, the popular opinions actually being represented in the state, right? And so when you think about the current president of the Dominican Republic, his agenda is a neoliberal agenda, just like Moïse's agenda was a neoliberal one. And so their interests are very much connected to each other. And so, in the Dominican Republic, again, there has been the attempt by many social groups on the ground to recover the histories of solidarity and struggles between Haiti and the Dominican Republic. But we're often met with the fact that, the nation state of the Dominican Republic, again, is aligned and literally licks the boots of the United States. And so whatever the United States says, that's what they will do. And whatever opinion they have of whatever other country in that region, that's what they will follow. There are really close ties between the Dominican Republic and Colombia, between states, right? Colombia has the highest number of US military bases in the region. Now, Colombia has served as a launching pad of attacks to Venezuela, which is a socialist revolution, right? And so when you see these connections and you have the Dominican Republic, which is connected to Colombia, right next to Haiti, and are aligned with the neoliberal politics of the Haitian government, there's really nothing good to expect in relationship to the government and the Haitian people. In fact, nothing good to expect in relationship with the Dominican state and the Dominican people, because ultimately it's not about working class and mass community importance. Like, they don't really care about poor people or the dispossessed. Their interests are solely aligned with, you know, the development of U.S. imperialist interests, and as nation oligarchs, their own economic interests. And so, like, the socio-economic and political stability in Haiti and the Dominican Republic, like, needs to be understood as a result of these alliances between nation oligarchs and U.S. European capitalist interests. The Dominican state is in no way, shape, or form going to be supportive of anything that advances working class struggles in Haiti, in the Dominican Republic, in Brazil, and none of that. They all form part of an alliance that is in the region precisely to advance U.S. imperialist agenda. And so, you know, if we are unable to see that that this is kind of like the problem, nothing can be solved in Haiti, the Dominican Republic, or any country in the American continent that is suffering based on neoliberal projects. Like, if we don't understand that these governments are there to deepen the neocolonial rule, then we can't actually work with a clear assessment of what it is that we need to do.
Well, I saw that Spain is calling for unity. So I guess that's a good, it's always good when the colonial ruler is saying, all right, children.
Yeah, let's unite.
Let's unite
all the way. We need more Spanish rule.
So we can organize our dominance.
Anyway. That sounds like Biden, though.
Yeah.
That sounds like the Biden campaign here. Let's all unite against Trump, and now he's that.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like, this type of unprincipled unity where you don't acknowledge history, you don't acknowledge that you are the ones that caused this shit. Like, we don't need that.
So what you're saying? Spain is saying we can push him left. We can, we can chill, everybody. We can push him left.
It's all good. We're gonna be all right. If you were to make a prediction based off of history and where things are currently, where do you see this thing going in the next 30 days? I know it's a broad joint, but
I mean, history teaches us, right? Like, they're now putting martial law into place. They are now going into houses. They are now acting and increasing violence upon the people because this president has been killed, which is not a president. He was a dictator, because we need to call things by their names. Like, he was supposed to be out. He was a dictator. Now, what historically has happened is that there's an intensification of violence, and violence that comes from the state, but also violence that comes from, you know, organized groups that are in opposition. Like, but who pays the price for all of this? Is the organizers, is the grassroots, you know, communities that are organizing themselves to survive, is the political organizations in opposition to neoliberal projects. So these are the folks that are going to be suffering the consequences of assassination that was, in my opinion, was something that was intentionally done and politically driven. And it was not necessarily done by the people who have been resisting all this time. And so this is a justification for U.S. intervention. I mean, Colombia was the first one to come out and say, we need the U.S. to intervene. The French ambassador in Haiti was like, you know, now is the time to call for elections. Nobody cared while people were out in the streets saying we need to change this government. But now that this assassination has happened, it's like it's the justification to just unleash a whole lot of things that they had in the list that they need to check in order to make sure that Haiti continues to be a neoliberal project at the hands of U.S. imperialism.
So in essence, we're back to just like they say on a local level, we need more cops, we need more troops. You know what I'm saying? That's the nature of imperialism. It's crazy. They don't even change the playbook. I mean, this is, you know, all around the world saying so.
Yeah, it's history.
All right.
Can you talk to us a little bit about, we want to bring in a little bit more of the Dominican connection, not necessarily with Haiti, but what's happening on the ground? You know, like Haiti has, gone through these neoliberal regimes, but we've seen, even if the media has tried to hide some of the backlash or pushback, let's say from people on the streets, we've seen some of that pushback. Considering that some of the history of the Dominican Republic, can you talk a little bit about the social movements on the ground in the Dominican Republic, their strengths? Do you foresee anything ever sort of, is the system too stable, or do you see anything on the horizon in terms of social movement pushback that reaches sort of a mass level in the Dominican Republic?
So, I mean, we're a neo-colony. Like, we don't call ourselves that, but that's what we are. And there's obviously a lot of, whenever there's oppression and exploitation, there's always resistance. So I appreciate the question, because there are a lot of folks that are involved in a lot of different sectors of struggle. Like, there are massive struggles around and against the privatization of schools. There's a lot of struggles around land, and against agribusiness and the exploitation of the land. There are a lot of struggles against the privatization of water and access to clean water. So there is a lot of movement. Unfortunately, because it's a guidebook. It's a copy and paste of a lot of the U.S. politics into a neo-colony. We find that there has been a lot of fragmentation. Identity politics have seeped in. There is a lot of breakage in lineage, right? There were political prisoners. There have been the murders of activists. There have been so there are very similar things that have happened in the United States in terms of breaking the lineage of struggle and the radical traditions is very similar to what's happened in the Dominican Republic. And so now you have a group of folks that are organizing on the ground, that are trying to make advancements. The question of reform in the Dominican Republic is like not even a thing, because the state is not interested in making reforms and pacifying the people. You know what I'm saying? They have the military to do that. And so whenever there's an organization around, access to education, the students are met with police force, with military force, right? We are heavily militarized. Like, the border between the Dominican Republic and Haiti is it's ridiculous, right? Because not only do we have the Dominican military on one side, we have all sorts of militia on the Haitian side that are rainbowed. You have military from Brazil, from Colombia, from the United States, heavy militarized territory, right? And so because of these different factors, and also internal factors to political organizations of the left, there isn't a clear advancement or clear political strategy to gain power. And so what we end up with is, our version of Biden, our version of like the Democratic Party that come and pacify the masses with their we're for the workers, but in the objective practice, what they're doing is further dismantling the possibility of organizing. You know what I'm saying? So we don't really have a strong movement in the Dominican Republic. We have fragments of a movement, and they're just difficult questions to bring into the forefront and discuss and actually build that unity, also because of history, because there's different tendencies, because there are definitely vices within the left, and one of the biggest vices that I could identify as someone who's from living outside of the Dominican Republic but connected to the work over there is that anti-Haitian sentiment. That a lot of these leftist groups feel like they have to position themselves, or not even position themselves around the question of Haiti to be able to advance politically, rather than taking that as a challenge to be able to educate the people about our long histories of struggle. And so, that's a long-winded way of saying that there is movement, but that unfortunately is fragmented, that is very much controlled by neoliberal politics and ideology. And it'll take a lot of work for us to understand ourselves as a class in connection to Haiti, to love ourselves as Black people, and stop trying to be like the US imperialists, or trying to stop be like Spaniards, or trying to be like those who are our true enemies. There's a narrative that has been spread in the Dominican Republic that is that, you know, Haitians are the enemy. And there have been laws that have been created from the Dominican state to rip Dominican Haitians born in the Dominican Republic, like of Haitian descent, from their citizenship, thousands of people. And that obviously hasn't happened without being met with resistance from the people. But we have a long way to go, you know, for the left to understand that there is a need for unity, not only in one side of the island, but across the border. And that there is, you know, the necessity to understand our fate in relationship to the fate of the Haitian people.
So it's like a concentrated version of what's going on here in the US, basically. You know what I mean? Jamaicans not dealing with Haitians, and these folks not dealing with those, and the whole nine. Black Americans, quote unquote Black Americans, and continental Africans not getting along. So this shit is insane all the way across the board. We got a lot of work to do around these parts, people.
That's right. That's right.
Can I ask one more question before if you have a little bit more time, just one more question I was interested in. Because I wanted to ask about, because you brought this up and we didn't ask specifically about the racial dynamic and issue, particularly around not only the Dominican Republic and Haiti, but amongst the Dominicans themselves. And you brought this up around the idea of being African, right? In terms of how Dominicans see themselves, or being Black as Dominicans see themselves. And is that part of the, I think it obviously, did
he freeze?
It probably is, but it's like advantage. Am I back?
Man, something about the racial dynamic.
Like
he did the whole lawyerly blah 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 Brooklyn blah 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 lawyer blah blah
racial
blah.
Dynamic.
Cut all that shit out. Once again, anyway, that's another question.
Between
maybe
Dominican Republic and vis-a-vis Dominican Republic.
Yeah, maybe you would just want to talk about. I think.
I'll shut up.
Because I don't know if we heard any of that.
No, I didn't hear it, but I think I kind of got some of it, and maybe Kamar, you could tell me whether I did or not in a minute.
If I'm back real quick, I'll just say the racial dynamic within the Dominican Republic and between Haiti and the Dominican Republic, to keep it short.
Okay, thank you. I think it's important to understand that we are, you know, again, and I want to emphasize this, we're a neo-colony. We were colonized by Spain. So obviously there's the impact of that process, and then there's the impact of having the United States, like from the early 1910s till now, you know, have control over what we understand identity to be and what we need to be in order to be valued, right? So we need to understand that, and we also need to understand the relationship of, you know, independence movements in the region. Like there are folks that are coming from oligarchies that have these revolutionary ideas about developing nation states that in some way or another in structures like mimicked, you know, structures that weren't there before, that weren't native, that weren't indigenous to our ways of building community. And so if we understand that, then we understand that our sense of what is valuable is controlled by first Spaniard dominance over the territory, and then by US hegemony over the territory. And there is a question of nationality, which makes it different from the United States. We are Dominicans, right? There's many different nationalities in the United States. So to understand this question of Blackness and colorism, we also need to understand this question of nationality for our territory and what it is. In everything we do, there's Blackness. Everything. The music, the food, the way we talk, the way we relate to people. Like we are Black AF, like we're Black, right? But our understanding of Blackness, right, is related to something that we've been told that is unworthy, and that is related to, you know, slaves, or that is related to, you know, Black people from the United States because we're Dominican. So it's not the same thing. And I think a lot of the times we get caught in trying to understand these dynamics from a US lens. And we need to be able to contextualize what that looks like. You know, like the social, economic, political instability of Haiti needs to be understood as a result, again, of the alliances between these oligarchies, US, you know, European capitalists. We need to understand, you know, what is meant to construct or build this nation states. We need to understand the impact of colonization, but also of US global hegemony. We need to understand the geopolitics, you know, globally, not only of the region, to be able to make sense of the way we understand ourselves and the way that we relate to others, you know. And unfortunately, all that work, all that political formation and education has been lost precisely because of the intentional attacks against revolutionary movements, against political organizations that have attempted in some point in history to do that work.
Dope, no doubt, no doubt.
Right on. Thank you very much
for joining us. Yeah,
absolutely. And thanks to Hiram for the introduction and the production help, and definitely shout out to New Haven.
That's just Bridgeport, baby.
That's place.
Not Bridgeport. Not Bridgeport.
Say it again. What'd you say, Claudia?
I said not Bridgeport.
Whoa, Claudia's a hater too.
Claudia, you can come back anytime you want.
Anytime, Claudia.
Claudia, you got a
carpet for you.
Where you from, Claudia? Where you at, Claudia?
South Bronx.
I should have known that. Go ahead.
New York City, son.
Co-op City for life.
That's it. That's where I'm from.
Brooklyn.
You from where?
Y'all all right. Brooklyn.
Yeah, leave it alone. Yeah. Claudia, thank you so much.
Yes,
we're going to come back
Thank
after
you.
this break.
Right.